This is going to be project number 2 that we are going to be creating today. This is the project we are going to be working on. This is the welcome sign. So we are going to be bringing in a piece of clip art. We are going to be manipulating that clip art to generate this extra area, and then we'll be dropping in the welcome. And this is a nice little piece that you can put pretty much anywhere. But this is a good example of how you bring in clip art and manipulate it inside the Torchmate CAD. Let's go ahead and get started. So importing clip art into the Torchmate CAD is relatively simple. All we need to do is have the clip art, and it should be in the DXF format. We can also take EPS format, AI format, PDF, and a few different types of third-party softwares. DXF is usually the most popular. So how we import those items is we go to File, and then Import, and we'll go ahead and locate what our clip art is. As we can see, we've got a little bit of clip art on our computer, but the one we're going to select is going to be called the mountain. Once I have that item selected, I can go ahead and press Import. We can see that the cursor has changed. This is going to make it so the left-hand corner of the clip art, we can place it anywhere we want. We don't want to left-click and drag because that will change the proportion of the clip art itself. All we want to do is just left-click. This will bring up the DXF import options. Being that this is a DXF file, the import options correspond with that. Now for our international friends, we can go ahead and generate either metric or inches. And we can also have the option to close shapes and remove duplicates. I usually let this thing come in raw, so I want to make sure that those 2 items are unchecked. Press OK. Now once our clip art comes in, it usually comes in as a different color, and it also comes in without all of the items dropped out. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that it is the color that I want it to create in. Preferably, I like black. So I'm going to come down here to my color bar, and then I'm going to left click and then right click on the mouse, and it will change the color. As you can see, it went from gray to black. Now I'm going to go to Arrange and then Make Path. This will drop out all of those interior features to allow that this is what our design is going to look like. So the first thing I want to do is I can see what the size is up here at the top. I have my item selected, so I'm going to make it 12 inches wide and press Enter. Now as we can see, this thing just stretched. Now I wanted to make sure that this thing is mountains and not hills. The problem was that I did not have my lock selected. So with this thing unlocked, it made this thing a disproportionate scale. So I'm going to go ahead and press Control Z for undo, and it will take it back to the original design. I'm going to press my proportional scaling lock to make sure that it is locked. Now I can enter in my size that I want, and as you can see, it proportionately scaled my design the way that I want it. Now since this is a welcome sign, we need to add some text. Now usually I put my text down here at the bottom right-hand corner, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll go to my text tool, I'll select the very first text option, and then I'll come down and bring the cursor down to the area I want. Now once I have my text selected, I want to find a font that flows with my mountains design. So I'll press the F for the font detective. I'll move this over. Now I can go through and find the text that I'm looking for. Now I usually like a nice little woodsy font to go along with my mountains. So I'll go ahead and select my Comet Sans and press Select. Now I can come down here and type my welcome. That's nice. Now since I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and press my orange pointer tool. And now I can go ahead and move my item over into the area that I'm really looking for. And I'll do a little bit of manipulation, size manipulation, to make sure that it kind of flows with what I'm looking to achieve. Now with this thing selected, I can kind of notice that I'm going to need to create some sort of shape to go along with my welcome sign to make it flow a little bit with this design. Now, I can go ahead to my rectangle tool and just create a rectangle, but that's not really much of a design. That's actually pretty ugly. So I don't want to do that. I want to create my own shape to make sure that this thing looks good and flows with the design itself. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to my graphic edit tool, I'm not going to use just the straight line. I'm going to use my arc edit tool. Now the arc edit tool is a little bit wonky to use, but once you get the gist of it, you can kind of figure out that it's relatively simple and allows you to do a lot of little things like tracing items or creating the blobs that we need to generate. So I'm going to go ahead and select my arc edit tool. As we can see, our cursor now has turned into a pencil. In order to make our blob shape, it usually is helpful to get out of fill mode. So I'm going to go to View, take off Show Fill, and it gives us a better idea of what we are working with. Now the way the arc edit tool works is that it's just a left click and then it starts with a line. Now we can just do straight lines by just doing another left click. And as you can see, it generates this next line. Well, if I hold down the left mouse button when I generate that extra click and then move my mouse up and down or around, it generates an arc in between those 2 points. Once you get the arc you're looking for, you release the mouse button, and now you start over again with that straight line. So now you can come through and just create a shape that's kind of similar to the design that you were generating or the design that you have brought in. Now, since we have all of these loopy little lines, we want to make sure that this is relatively loopy because we don't want it to be a distraction or show people that we added this to the clip art. So the main goal is to make sure that you end where you start, or it won't generate it being a shape. So as we can see, this is our starting node right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just left click over that, and then that will finish. We no longer have a line, but that will finish the shape that we generated. Now once we have the shape that we like, or even that we don't like, really it doesn't matter much as long as we have generated the shape itself. Once the shape is generated, I can press apply. As we can see, our shape is selected. I can come back here and double click it, and we can get back into doing some minor node editing. So even though if you didn't like the shape that you created, you can come back in here and make some minor alterations to it. You can select each node to move the node, or if you hover in between the nodes, it turns into a fist, which will allow you to generate those arcs. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of tighten this thing up a little bit. If I need to add a node, I can go ahead and just hover over the line where it turns into a fist and press A on the keyboard to add that node, and we can make some more tight alterations. So once you're happy with that shape, go ahead and click apply. Now we can come up to View and turn on Show Fill. This is a good way to know that you have generated your shape and you've ended it where it started. For a demonstration, if I don't have a shape finished, it will show up as a dotted line. It will mean that this node here never attached to this node. So, like I said prior, make sure that this shape is closed. You can manipulate it a little bit later. Delete that. Now, since I have my shape generated, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to select my mountains, and we're going to come over here and do a basic weld. This will weld our shape to the rest of our design, as we can see here. Now that we have our welcome in place, I can go ahead and select my welcome, manipulate it a little bit to make sure that it fits inside of my shape. I'll do a Control A for select all. Come under Arrange. I'm going to go text to graphics because I have text inside of here that have not been made into a shape. And then I can come back to Arrange and make path. Once I do that, we'll see that our welcome has dropped out and that we need to generate that bridge for the inside of the O. Now, because I have used my Arc Edit tool, we can go ahead and generate a bridge that's either made just by using a rectangle, or we can come over here to our Arc Edit tool to generate a custom shape meant for this O. Now keep in mind that we want to end where we started to create that shape. I'll click Apply. I'll come back here and double click it, and I'll give this a little bit of an arc to make it kind of flow a little bit better with my O. I'll press Apply. Now I can Control A for select all. and come back over here to our basic weld tool to weld that bad boy into place. Now, as we can see, we got our mountains, we have our welcome, or whatever you put in there. Now we can go ahead and generate our toolpath. So once I have my item selected, we'll come up to Machine, Create Toolpath. We're going to do a male toolpath. We skip to Basic Cut. We don't use templates. We want to make sure that our toolpath is plasma, climbing, sharp, and we're going to enter in 100 for the feed rate. Come over to our lead in, lead out. We'll generate an arc lead in, and I'm going to change the radius of our arc lead in to 0.1 because I do have some smaller features in here and I want to make sure that it does generate a lead in. I'm going to go ahead and press OK. Oh no. What this thesis of a error is telling us is that there's areas inside of our design that isn't enough area for the toolpath to be generated. Also, it's telling us that there are some areas that a lead-in cannot be generated. So let's go ahead and press OK, and let's observe what this error really is telling us. So a good way to view this is that as we can see, this is our toolpath being generated. So we have our female toolpath in here, and as you can tell, there's certain portions of our design that did not get a toolpath to it. Now, being that this is your design, you can tell that there's going to be certain areas where there is toolpaths. So this is just going to generate just a little pierce point. This little area right here does not have a lead in, but the one area that I'm really concerned about is this area right here that is defining the tree itself. So if I go to View, Show Toolpaths Only, this will allow us to just see the toolpath that has been generated. So as we can see, this little area right here did not generate a toolpath. So that's telling me that that error that showed up is that there's not enough area for a lead-in, but also that there is overlapping area that's not going to generate a toolpath at all. Now, being that this squiggly line that generates this pine tree is part of the design and I want it there, then the first thing I want to do is I'm going to do a Control-Z for undo. Don't worry, your design is still there. We're going to go back to View and Show Toolpaths. Hey, there it is. And how we're going to do this is we are going to drop out this squiggly line and give it a different type of a toolpath. And then we'll allow the rest of the design have the normal male-female toolpath. Because I know that some of these little intricacies inside of this design, it's not going to be that big of a deal. To whereas if we were doing like a dimensional drawing, then we would be in a different attitude. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Arrange, and we're going to Break Path. We're going to break this thing into all individual items, so we can deselect this item from the rest of our design. So once you press Break Path, all of these items come back into being an individual shift. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down the Shift key and deselect that squiggly line from the rest of the design. As you can see, the squiggly line is no longer selected, but the rest of our design is. So I'm going to go back to Arrange, and I'm going to Make Path. As we can see, everything falls back into place. Now I can come back here and generate my male-female toolpath. Let's go to Machine, Create Toolpath, then Male. Go back to Basic Cut. All of our parameters that we had in there prior are still showing up, so I'm going to go ahead and press OK. We will still get this error, and the reason why is because we have some of those finer details in here. But being that this is an art piece, none the wiser, so I'm going to go ahead and just press OK. Now I'm going to come back here because I want to select that squiggly line, and I can't really select it while this thing is still in View, Show Fill. So I'm going to go to View, I'm going to take off Show Fill, and as we can see, our squiggly line is there. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and now we're going to generate an online toolpath. So I'll select Machine, I'm going to create a toolpath, and I'm going to create an online toolpath. We'll skip to Basic Cut, Now, an online toolpath just does that. It follows a line. It does not matter if it's so close to a certain item or not. It just follows it. So we want to make sure that it has all of the same parameters to go along with our online toolpath. So we want to make sure that the tool is plasma. We're going to go to climbing, and we're going to change the feed rate to 99. Now, the reason why we're going to change this to 99 is for a visual reference when we are generating the G code. Now, 99 versus 100 isn't much of a difference. Now, we don't use lead-in and lead-outs on an online toolpath, so it's going to generate a pierce point right on the line and then just follow it. So there is no lead-in, lead-out. So all I need to do is press OK. Now, as we can see, it generated that toolpath. Now I can select all of the items and make sure that our sequence is going to be correct. In a male-female relationship of toolpaths, the female always cuts first, the male will cut last. But we need to make sure, since we added a different type of a toolpath, that this is going to cut out first before the rest of the other sequences transpire. Because of, if this thing goes loose after you cut it, and then comes back and tries to do the online toolpath, then you might get unexpected results and they could be ugly. So we're going to make sure we have everything selected. We're going to go to Layout, Sequence, and then Start Sequence by List. As we can see, it brings up the list of all of the items that have been selected or that are on the in the display itself. So I just want to affect the toolpath, so I'm going to select Toolpaths Only. And as we can see, there's our squiggly line, and then there's the rest of our design. Now the nice thing is that our online toolpath is already set up to go first. If it was different, then we would just need to select it and press to front, or you can drag it into any position that you're looking for. But being this is just going to be one feature that is going to be an online toolpath, then we just need to make sure that that one's selected and it is first. So once we have the sequence that we like, we can go ahead and press OK. I'm going to press Control A on the keyboard. We'll put this into the 0, 0 coordinate. Now I'll have everything selected again, and let's generate our toolpath. So Machine, and then Output. It brings up our cut toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in to our design just to verify that we have all of our elements that we like. I'll come over to our calculator, start our G code, and look at that. As we can see, we know that our online toolpath is first because we can see with just the visual of F99, which means the feed rate is set to 99, and that the rest of our design is F100, which is great. That's exactly the way we wanted it. So I'll go to our output control just to visually make sure that that's the way that this thing's going to roll. We'll press, and that's how it's going to cut. So we know that this thing's going to cut properly out on the machine, so I can go ahead and generate my file. So once I have that, press Cut Now. I'm going to go ahead and name this Mountains. Actually, I'll do Welcome Mountains. Press Save. It generated the file, so I'm going to go ahead and press Close on the output control. And now I can come back to File and Save As, and we'll just name this Mountains. Since it's a CDL format, that's exactly what we're looking for. Press Save. So this concludes our clip art demonstration. We'll be moving on to a dimensional drawing next, but this is a great piece to show that you can bring in any type of clip art and make any manipulation that you're looking for to make it a product actually for you. Now on our dimensional drawing next, we'll be going over how to manipulate those nodes and use coordinates to make those movements.